There's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
Hey, this is Steve from the band The Word66. You're listening to the BODS Mayhem Hour, your best place and your only place for podcasts.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father, and as always, I bring you guys and gals awesome interviews. You know that. And on today's podcast, I have an awesome guest, Mr. Steve Scott of the Word66. And the Word66 will release their new album, Rock and Roll Preaching, very soon. And they have released their new singles, On the Way to the Promised Land and The Chosen One. So we're going to talk to Steve about all this good stuff and surviving as a Christian rock band. That's the big thing these days, because it's not that easy. Not that easy at all. So we're going to get into all this. So Steve, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey, John, I really appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure talking to you finally.
Hey, you know what, man? There's 66 books in the Bible. Where did you actually connect to name the band the Word66? And I never hardly ever asked the name of the band because that's not even remotely close to the interview. But this struck me when I was like, the Word66, and there's 66 things, for the Bible. And I was like, that's very interesting.
That's really cool that you know that. Most people do not, even Christians. So I honestly, I didn't know there were 66 books in the Bible either. And then one day when I was attending church, the pastor that I go to see all the time, he mentioned one day that there were 66 books in the Bible. And I kind of put that in the back of my head. I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then when it came to naming the band, we actually were looking at a lot of different names and a lot of different possibilities. And then I remembered the 66. And I said, well, how about the Word 66? Because technically the Bible is the Word. Mm-hmm. And there's 66 books in the Bible. So I thought that was a really cool name.
I just honestly Googled it because I was looking to do stuff about the Bible, and it said 66 books. I was like, that's very interesting. And it's interesting to me because I have different flavors of churches in my family, old regular Baptist. I have Baptist. I have Pentecostal, just different flavors. And man, they're interesting, but it's one God, folks.
Yes.
Let's not forget that it's one God.
Absolutely.
When you think back, Steve, about this band and when it came together, what was your realistic expectation for it? What was your goals and just getting started and get it rolling?
This was a calling for me. So I actually had something that happened in my life, and I was away from religion for a really long time. And I did not think I was going to go back. And I had this calling. I believe that God reached out to me and said that this is your purpose, because we all have a purpose in life. And I believe that God said, hey, this is your purpose. I want you to write music for me. I want you to spread the word through the music. That is also why I named the record Rock and Roll Preaching, because I feel that's essentially what we do.
How good does that make you feel, though, when you're writing that and he's speaking through you? You're speaking for him, through the words.
Oh, it's amazing. You get filled with the Holy Spirit, and they just kind of take over, and it kind of it just leads the way. So it's really cool. And there's a lot more to it than that, because not only do I feel that was our purpose to write this music, but I also feel that we were also picked and chosen for this because we're kind of spreading the word also to people that are really unaware of this genre of music.
That's very true.
So we are what I call a Christian crossover band. So we get played a ton on the Christian rock stations, but we also get played a ton on, your regular metal stations and your hardcore stations. And we have a lot of radio play on indie stations as well. So besides that, we're also getting, some proud to say some great reviews in all different places. And something I've heard many times is that, I did not know that there was this kind of music out there. And what's essentially happening is a lot of people are missing out on this fantastic genre of music.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of great Christian bands that are rocking it out there. I mean, and you're right. It's so shoved under the rug, and it's typical. That's the typical thing. Oh, you're a Christian band. Sorry. Can't play it.
Right.
I don't think it'll fit the show I play. That's bull crap.
Yes.
That is pure bull crap. If it's
Absolutely.
good music, play it. That's plain and simple.
Exactly. And people who don't want to hear, don't want to listen to the Christian band or don't listen to Christian music, that's fine. But then there are other people too that might want to, hopefully will have an open mind and just know that we rock like all your other bands do, like all your other favorite bands, all your other metal bands. We rock just like they do. The only thing is we always have a positive message.
Yeah.
So I suggest the people, if you want to learn a little bit more about the genre, add some Christian music to your playlist.
If I'm not mistaken, Skillet is one.
Yes.
12 Stones.
Yes.
I mean, I'll say it right now. My God, if nobody has listened to 12 Stones, you are definitely living under a rock, and you're so missing out on that band because their songs hit you a ton. And if you can't feel anything from them, I'm sorry. They're great.
You're absolutely right. And of course, you got bands like Disciple and Ashes Remain, and Red is another really cool band, and Demon Hunter. I mean, you can go on and on. So again, as an introduction to some Christian music, just, I say go online and research Christian hard rock, Christian metal bands, and listen to some of it, and you'll want to add some of the music to your playlist. And then, perhaps it may be a reason for you to want to learn a little bit more about it.
Since we're along the lines of this subject, I know there is some successful metal Christian rock bands, but being a Christian rock band, is it harder to break through as a band on the mainstream, and are bands being pushed out because they sing for God? Do you think it's more harder now?
I think it is. But again, you just need to be open-minded.
Sure.
Like I said, we've been very fortunate and blessed, and again, guided by the Holy Spirit, to where right off the bat, people loved our music, and that was really cool. So we started, charting everywhere from our first track, and we hit #1 in a lot of different places all over the country. Our new track is doing the same thing, and others, before it. So we definitely know that it's a truism that this is what we're supposed to do. And again, there are some people. I remember this one guy who reviewed our music, and he gave us this really bad review. But he also admitted that he was an atheist and was really against any kind of religion. So somebody like that, perhaps maybe someday they'll be in a position where, they might want to learn a little bit more about Christ and God. But if not, to those other people, if you're not really into the whole religion thing, well, maybe you'll just dig the music.
How special is it for you guys to see these two singles charting the way that they are charting? And I mean, they are absolutely going to like 5 to #1. I mean, they are hitting hard for you guys. How special is that to see that come out hitting like that?
It's amazing. It's an out-of-body experience.
Oh, yeah.
like I mentioned, John, I mean, it's kind of like it just validates the fact that this is really what we're supposed to do.
Sure.
There's an unfortunate thing is that there are some really big Christian rock stations out there that for some reason don't want to play our music.
That's ridiculous.
And I am not going to say the stations, because I guess if I do, then I don't know, maybe I'll get blackballed along the way or something. But there are some places that it blows my mind. And a lot of times when I do most of the promo and everything.
Yeah.
So when I send songs out, I'll attach like all those lists from places, Christian and non-Christian, where again, we're charting in the top 10 and these number ones. I'll have all these different articles that I'll attach, and yet they'll still think, I don't know, that maybe we're not good enough to be on their station, which really sucks.
Yeah. But have you thought about it like this though? Like back in the day, you had to be like a certain style to get onto the air. You know what I'm talking about? It had to be radio friendly, stuff like this. You had to sell the product, as they say. Do you think that's what it is? Maybe when you listen to the songs that's actually being played on there and you're like, oh my God, why are they on there and we're not?
A lot of those stations that are the Christian hard rock stations, they play some pretty hardcore stuff on there. I believe it's harder than we are. But again, it's just about your style and how you go about it. So it blows my mind. And there's also a publication that comes out, an important publication that we've reached out to several times before as well. And again, I'm not going to mention names, but they come back and they send us like this, I don't know, what do you call it? This canned response where it's kind of like, yeah, you guys are, I don't know if we really want to, work with you guys at this point in time. And they give us like suggestions as to, maybe you could try this route or that route. And again, we've sent them all these different lists, and this new one that we're on, they're called 3R Radio, which is Righteous Rock Radio. And we've now been number one for like the last 3 weeks.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and we've actually, they do a top 40 list where some of my all-time favorite bands are on that list, and bands that I love to listen to and respect. And for us to be number one and for 3 weeks in a row, I mean, that's just such a beautiful thing. And we'll send those lists to those kind of places too. And it just doesn't matter.
Man, it's validation, no matter how you look at it. And plus, you felt the calling, so you're doing what you're supposed to do, and it eventually break open. And that's how it is. And when those folks be like, hey, we can, no, I'm sorry.
Right. Would you guys like to do an interview? You guys are in town and we would like to have you on the station. Yeah. I don't know. We're kind of busy. I mean, I don't know if we'll have time then.
You can send them a canned response. Well, maybe if you go this way or that way,
But that's not the way of Jesus, though.
That's true. That's the way of the bod. I'm sorry.
Yes. It's tough. Believe me. I mean, I fight that stuff all the time, John.
I've been there. I hear it daily. I try to get interviews. We'll just move on because we're better than that, Steve. We're better.
That's right.
That's right. Let's go. How excited are you to have your upcoming new album entitled Rock and Roll Preaching finally to be released? And has the album turned out exactly the way you guys wanted it?
I don't have an exact date. So we put some feelers out there, and we actually do have several offers on the table. We actually did sign with a label. Quick story. We actually did sign with this one label that we thought was a good label. And after the podcast, I could tell you what label it is. I won't say now, but we're actually signed for about 3 weeks. And we had some disagreements with the label and the owner. Things, they were dragging their feet. It was taking forever to get stuff done. And what we were going to do, we were going to combine the 2 EPs to make it a full LP. Because there's a lot of people out there that, have no idea who we are. So, it'll be all new to them. So that's what we were going to do. And then we wound up having a disagreement, and they actually tore up our contract.
Oh, man.
And it's really funny, too, because I was speaking to some other PR people a little bit later on, and they said, believe me, it was a blessing that they did that, because you need to stay away from these guys. So,
wow.
Anyway, so we're really kind of still looking for the right label to sign with. So we're kind of delayed a little bit on getting that record out. As far as things turning out exactly the way we want, you never get what you want, really. I mean, you're never really satisfied with what you do. And the problem is being independent musicians and the stuff coming out of your pocket, money wise, you really don't have the time to really perfect everything and make things sound exactly like you want it to sound.
Right.
So there's some stuff that you will listen to on the record, or I will listen to, for instance. And when I hear it, I go like, oh, I could have done that so much better, or that could have worked out a lot better. There's actually one song on the record too that actually before it's released, I'm probably going to go back in the studio and there's a couple little tweaks I'd like to make on it. I'm not real happy with the total mix of it. So there's a couple things I'd like to do. The next track that we were going to release actually, or going to release, is actually a ballad. Okay. So it's a song called How Will I Know? And it's about a single person wondering when God is going to send them their Eve, so to speak. And it's just acoustic guitar, a cello, and vocals.
Do you feel this new, I'm just going to call it album. I'm just going to call it album.
Okay.
Do you feel the new album has to come out swinging for this band after the pandemic, after everything you guys have been through? Do you think it has to come out swinging to make a statement and say, hey, we are the Word66 and this is us?
Yeah, I believe so. You definitely, every time you put something out there, you definitely got to catch people's ears and they got to love it. So, sure. We're hoping that when we go in the studio that we create that kind of excitement. Like I said, unfortunately, budget wise, we don't have the time to really do all the bells and whistles and tweaks that we'd really like to do. So we get it as close as we can for the money that we have, or the money that I have to spend on the thing. So the first song we released was Tonight is the Night. And that one seemed to really do extremely well and people loved it. And you might say it's a little bit harder than some of the stuff on the first record.
How special is it to have this album in the Word66 music library and still be able to carry on and create your music?
It's fantastic. Again, I love it. And the fact that we're doing this for the higher power, shall we say, it's just amazing. We have a ton of other music that we'd like to get into the studio and record. So we'd like to put together another full LP, if you will, and get it out there as well. And we've got a ton of really cool stuff that's going to be coming soon.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is like, did anything not make this album? Any tracks didn't make this album that we're going to see down the road possibly? Are there any like stuff stored away on hard drive that's eventually going to be out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I like to throw a little scripture in my music sometimes as well. I write all the lyrics. I'll throw some stuff in here and there. And some of the stuff that I write about, so On the Way to the Promised Land is essentially about the book of Exodus. So it kind of takes you through what I call like a chronological order of the events that actually happened back then. So that's that. And then there's other ones coming out where, we got things about, the flood, the 40 days and the 40 nights kind of thing. And then we have stuff also written about Adam and Eve. There's a whole lot of subjects. We have another track that I'm also really excited to record as well. And that's, it's going to be a little bit lighter. And it quotes basically the Bible word for word on the track.
So for the fans that know your music and that follow the Word66, did the band add anything differently, Steve, on this album musically than what fans are accustomed to? Are they going to get something a little bit different on this one compared to, say, previous EPs possibly?
As I mentioned, it's probably a little bit heavier. The sound is a little heavier. Honestly, when we went in the studio to record the first EP, we were kind of looking more toward a little bit of a classic rock-ish sound. And there have been people that have written, reviews and articles and stuff about us too, where they've kind of put us in a bit of a classic rock category. There's There's this one radio station overseas, and they recently had a top 10 countdown, and they actually put us in there, and it was really so flattering because we were in there with Led Zeppelin, AC/DC,
Wow.
Deep Purple, Van Halen, Crocus, and we were above a lot of those bands too. And it made my day, you know.
I'd say so, but would you guys go back and change anything on that EP though? I mean, being classified as in that genre as classic rock or like that, but would you go back and change anything on it?
Not really. I mean, there's a possibility we might remix it and maybe try to make it a little bit heavier, see if we can get the guitar sounds a little bit heavier, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
How's the fans' feedback been on the release of the new single, The Chosen One? I got to know, I know the chart's been good for it, but what about the fans' feedback? What have you been seeing from everybody on that one?
Everybody loves it. It's really cool. And we didn't really know what to expect. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really sure if I actually wanted to record that track.
Oh, okay.
So that was one of the ones that, like you mentioned earlier, is there's some stuff that didn't make it. This one was one that was probably not going to make it, but the guys really thought it was a cool track and wanted it to be on the record as well. And to be honest with you too, when we recorded it, when you go into the studio, you have an idea how things are going to sound when it's done, but then the finished product sometimes comes out so much different than you imagined.
Yeah.
And when you have a great producer like we did, Vinnie Castaldo, he's got such a fantastic ear for music, and he had some great ideas, and his ideas and my ideas combined kind of changed the track dramatically to where it sounds now, So yeah, but the fans are digging it, and I'm really appreciative of that as well, and especially because of the fact, like I said, we didn't know if this was actually going to be on that record or not, or if it was going to be something recorded later on.
Working with Vinny though, did he get something out of you guys that maybe somebody else might not have gotten possibly?
I believe so. That's something that a great producer does. Not only do they have amazing ears, but they kind of get the best performances out of you.
Yeah. And
he heard some things that I didn't hear. There were some things that were, again, on these records that he would listen to, and he'd be like, something, it would be really cool if we did this or if we did that. And I'd be like, that would be really cool. And then we would do it, and then it would add so much to the track.
I love when producers step up and they just take over that song and be that song, because that's their product that they're putting out there, along with you guys. I mean, that's his staple out there. So I like to hear stories that the producers are actually working on this just as hard as you guys.
This particular producer, he works with a lot of big names as well. So he's not somebody that, has a studio in his garage kind of thing. And the band that just played, last week at some little hole in a wall or whatever in front of 10 people are coming in to record, a record. So again, he's worked with, and no disrespect intended, but he's worked with some really big names. And so he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And something that, if you're not a musician out there checking out this podcast, there are certain things that producers do that you don't even hear.
That's true.
So the regular ear will not hear the stuff that sometimes is going on in the background that adds so much to the track.
What led the track Tonight Is the Night to be the first song released off of this album? Because I know there could have been other ones that could have been easily the first track off of it, but what led this track to be the first one?
I thought it had the best punch. I love the energy that it brings, and the people that heard it prior to it actually being released really thought that was a good track to release first. Inspiration wise, so there is a course that you can take. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's called Rooted. So this one guy, I don't really remember his name, but he created this course, and it's a really in-depth study of the Bible. It's a 10-week course, and you get together once a week with a small group of people. They put you in small groups, so maybe there's, let's say, like 10 or 12 people in that group. And it's really intense because you also share a lot of really personal things in that group as well, besides, talking about, the Bible and getting into the study. So there was this one chapter called Strongholds, and that really inspired the lyrics to that as well. And of course, there's also a Bible passage in there that's very important. And so, so we thought that this was the most rocking track on the record, and it had been a little while since we've released anything. So we didn't want people to think that we were either gone or that we're just in limbo and nothing's happening. So we knew that we had to at least get out there and at least continue to release some new tracks.
What's the nucleus that keeps this band moving right along, creating the Word66 music and still being that 3-piece? What's that nucleus, man?
We're actually going to be a 4-piece when we tour.
Okay, good.
So we're adding a bassist. The vocalist, Brian, is also the bassist, and he's really not into doing both things. And I don't blame him, because I've been in trios before where I've been the guitarist and the vocalist, and it's not as much fun. You really got to concentrate a little too much, and you really can't go off and do fun stuff and just run around the stage, and because you need to be back in time, when the vocals are back. So it's going to be a 4-piece. The original drummer is no longer in the band, who was on the first EP. So we have some new players. The drummer, Lance Crane, he is actually my oldest friend, and we've been in bands together for many, many years. And it's been a long time since we've played together. And I mentioned to him that we wanted to go into the studio, and we were having some issues finding some drummers. We had this one guy that we played with for a short time, and he turned out to be a nutcase. That's a long story. So getting into the studio, we really didn't have a drummer. So he was like, hey, man, why don't you just send me the tracks and I'll do them for you, and I'll send them over to you. So that's what he did. And of course, he came out with some fantastic tracks, some great drumming, and he's a great double kick drummer. And so he's been in the band for a little while as well. On the record itself, we have Danny Miranda from who's been in Queen and in Blue Oyster Cult for many, many, many years. Actually, is doing the bass lines on that record.
Cowbell. Need more cowbell.
Absolutely. Everything can always use some more cowbell. Yes.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
We should have put cowbell in the song. Actually,
that's right. Start the whole song with just the cowbell. That's all.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Not to change the subject, man, but Blue Oyster Cult will always be iconic for "Don't Fear the Reaper" and that cowbell, man. I mean, it's just one of the most iconic songs that, if it's not in somebody's top 25 songs, man, we need to have music school. We need to sit down at music school.
Absolutely. And like you just said, also one of the most iconic SNL skits of all time as well.
Yes.
What was that? That was Christopher Walken, wasn't it?
That was Christopher Walken, baby. Christopher Walken. Will Ferrell.
Like, we need more cowbell.
And I'll never forget Will Ferrell, that damn cowbell going around hitting on it and doing the stuff. And Horatio Sands. And oh, man, that was a classic. Another classic lineup from Saturday Night Live. And sadly to say, it's just now. That's all it is.
A lot of times when I go to sleep, I'll turn on the TV and I'm looking for something funny to watch, because I was watching all this, stuff like Criminal Minds and, and probably not good stuff to watch before you go to sleep. So I was looking for something funny, and they had some SNL skits that you can watch, and I was looking into them, and I'm sorry to say, like you just said, and this was actually going back probably about 10 years ago. And some of this stuff is, I don't know, it's just not funny.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's like, where did this come from?
It's like they had their little kid, their 8-year-old or something like that, write a skit and say, "Hey, we need some stuff. Can you write some skits?" And
Right.
they wrote it, and you look at it and you go, "Wow, was that supposed to be funny? I mean, does anybody laugh at that? You know?" So,
All right, I got 2 questions for you on this. So his name, I forgot his name. Danny, correct? Danny was in. Okay.
yeah.
What does he think? What's his opinion about that song specifically? Don't Fear the Reaper. And plus, like we're talking about now, still to this day, of the cowbell and everything and Saturday Night Live. What does he think about that? How it's still, to me, I think that got Blue Oyster Cult a new following, even more.
Absolutely. I'm sure that song really put them on the map as well. I don't know, to be honest with you. I can't really answer that question, but that is probably one of the the top classic rock songs of all time. So probably if you put a list together of the top 50 or top 25 or whatever, I mean, that's
Yeah,
got
has
to
to
be
be
on
there.
there.
Has
It's got
to
to be
be
on there.
there.
Yeah.
Has to be. Any tracks standing out more to you than any right now on this album that you guys are going to be making? Because I know these are your babies. I completely understand it. And I know you're attached to them, but are there any that are sticking out for you personally?
Yeah. So I write a variety of music. So some of the stuff is a little heavier. Some of the stuff is more commercial. Like this ballad that's coming out next. We're kind of hoping that it would kind of cross over into the Christian contemporary market. So if you're not familiar with that market, that's kind of like the really mellow Christian rock stuff. So there's no distorted guitars. There's no guitar leads. There's keyboards in every song, kind of thing. So it's good stuff. And to be honest with you, I mean, I'm not knocking it because I do listen to that as well. I usually listen when I'm home. I have 2 radio stations going at once. So I have I'll have the Christian contemporary stuff, which is on your regular radio station that you turn on your radio and it's there. I usually have that on kind of going through the house. So when I'm not in my office, doing promotions and things, and I go to the kitchen, which is 100 times a day to get something to eat, it's on. So I kind of hear it there. And if I'm doing any cooking, which I love to do, little personal note, I like to cook. I like to bake. It's just fun. Plus the dogs. The dogs really like the Christian contemporary, I think, as well. So I even when I leave the house, I'll leave that station on for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if they sing along or not, or they really know many of the bands or much of the music, but I think they like it. And then, of course, I listen to stuff like, your station and a variety of stuff, because there's a lot of stations, blessing, that play our music and stuff. So I kind of scout around and I'll just kind of listen to different stations, along the way, some metal stations and some Christian stations and just all kinds of different stuff.
I've always said this. I'm like, why would you not play somebody, even if it's a crappy recording, just tell them, say, hey, get a better recording and I'll play your music. Because these folks started out just the same way as Metallica or, Danzig or somebody like that. I mean, some other bands had it easier, but the ones who actually worked their butt off, that's how they got their way. They didn't play a club and some manager come in and say, I want to sign those boys right now. Let's go to my limousine. Let's do this.
Right.
those days are long far and gone, folks. So why not play these people? Because they're doing the same thing that your favorite band started out doing. How would you like to be the ones that tell Poison, Guar, Slayer, Ghost, all these bands that are huge now and say, sorry, I can't play your music. It's junk. I mean, come on, who's getting the last laugh now?
Exactly. And there was a series called Behind the Music. You ever watch any of those?
I remember that. Yes, sir.
So every once in a while I would kind of watch that or something. And I'd put that on in the background or whatever. And you'd be surprised at all these bands that are amazing. And there are, they mostly cater toward the classic rock bands.
Yeah.
But some of the bands that are absolutely huge and they're absolute staples in people's lives were actually like that, where they couldn't get a record deal or anyone to pay attention to them to save their lives. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember one in particular was Tom Petty.
Yep.
Tom Petty was saying how nobody, I mean, they tried every label, they tried everything that they could possibly do, everybody, and absolutely nobody had any interest in them whatsoever.
Look at Pantera, where they started and where they are now.
Yes.
Compared to Glam Terra, as I call them, to kicking down metal's door and like, here we are. It's like, oh God. It's like, where'd you guys come from? You know, if it hadn't been for the change and stuff like that, man, I don't know about metal to this day, honestly.
It takes that one person. You gotta luck out, and you gotta, you know, find that right person that believes in you and has the ability to make things happen for you. You know, I mean, we keep reaching, like I said, we're still, you know, we're looking for a good record deal right now, and we're reaching out to a lot of the different places too. And unfortunately, the Christian market, and especially the Christian record labels, are few and far between.
Yeah.
There's not many of them. And the ones that are really good labels are major labels. And as you know, getting a major deal these days is impossible.
Yeah. Few far in between. Few far in between.
You really got to hit the lottery. So although we do reach out to them and we do send them stuff, let them know what's going on with the band, you know, the charting and the reviews, and, you know, I don't want this to sound like I'm bragging or anything, but I'm happy to say that we're getting featured constantly everywhere, all over the place, whether it be on radio stations or again, magazines or whatever. But we have almost daily, we're posting, okay, thank you to this place for featuring the band. Thank you for this place. And a lot of the stuff is in different countries as well, you know, whether it be France or Brazil or El Salvador, you know, a lot of different places. And we try to keep them up to date with that stuff. So we'll send them posts, and they probably, who knows, maybe they block us or maybe they just erase it, or who knows if they ever actually see it. But, you know, you got to give it a shot.
But you know what? You have every right to brag about this band, because like I said before, and everybody who's listening to this podcast, when this post, please listen to this, what I say. When you start getting the feedback like the Word66 is, and as much work and stuff that they put into this, you'll see why it feels good to put your stuff out there to say, hey, look, this is us. This is where we've been. This is where we've been featured, because it's not easy. I mean, if you just get one online radio station to play your song, or one online outlet to, you know, feature your track or whatever and talk about your band, you're very lucky. That's like hitting the lottery.
And we've got like a ton of places that, like, again, constantly, if you check like our Facebook page, for instance, we're constantly posting stuff and we're getting played like everywhere. And again, it's not like an ego thing. It's just that we're doing what we're supposed to do.
Exactly.
You know, we're supposed to spread the word. And like I mentioned to you in the beginning too, is I believe that also we're supposed to, especially with like indie people, indie stations and things. And we get these people that tell us all the time that say, oh, wow, you know, I think they think we're kind of like an innovator in the Christian music world. But of course we're not. And the other thing too is that if they know anything about Christian rock, it's usually Striper.
Yeah, that's the main key right there, Striper.
That's it. That's all they know. So they'll mention Striper and they'll say like, yeah, you guys remind me of Striper and stuff. I'm like, that's a fantastic compliment. Those guys are amazing. They're still putting out fantastic rock, and they're in a class all by themselves. But there's a lot of people that it seems like I'm kind of introducing this genre to them. And hopefully when people listen to it, they're also introduced to it as well, and will want to find out a little bit more. and about other bands as well.
What do you hope everyone takes away while listening to this upcoming new album and the Word66 music in general, Steve? What do you hope they get from once they're able to check out your guys' music?
And thank you so much for the positive words that you've said about the band as well. I didn't want to forget that. I want them to take away the message. Again, we're always. That's a big difference about a lot of us and some of the other bands, is that we're always sending a positive message out. It's always something. There's a lesson to be learned with all the music. And basically it says that if your life is not what you're hoping it would be at this point in time, and maybe you've tried different things before. And I always say that, a wise person once said that the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result. So maybe if your life really isn't so great right now and you just don't know what to do, you don't know where to turn, you don't know what to do, this is just an option for you. It's another place where maybe you can check into, maybe you might want to start by listening to some Christian music and go, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that message. Mm-hmm. And maybe check into, maybe you'll start going to church, or maybe not. I don't preach to people, really. The record is called Rock and Roll Preaching. I let the music do the talking for me.
There you go.
And a question I've been asked many times is that, when you're out and about, do you walk around preaching all the time? And do you talk about Jesus and God and following the word and damnation and, all that kind of stuff? And the answer is no, I don't. And again, I think this is why God chose me for this kind of stuff too, is because I have my own different approach to it.
Yeah. And that's good. That's good. Everybody needs to be different. You don't have to be stuck in that one set mind frame of everything that you hear about church related stuff. Everybody's different and they handle their style different, and that's good.
Yeah. And if anybody's interested in learning some stuff too, a little bit more about the subject, and you want to go to church, I always suggest that you check out a non-denominational church, mm-hmm. which is what I go to. And that's where, you usually have a decent rock band, Christian rock music, usually Christian contemporary stuff, but, it's good stuff that they'll play. If you have a preacher that comes out and lightens up the mood and throws some funny stuff in there, every now and then, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're going, listen, you're going to be damned if it's not like that. Non-denominational is not like that. It's a whole different kind of church. Yeah, and I call it the cool church.
All right, so here's my $1 million question for you. I know when you were younger, you had music that influenced you, that impacted your life, that you said, that's my theme music, that's my theme song. Ain't nobody gonna tell me no different. That's when I walk into the room, that's what I'm listening to in my head. And just like, now, since you're on that hot seat in a band putting out music, and fans can gravitate toward your guys' music or any song and take it any way they want to and interpret it in any way they want to. How does that make you feel now that it's helped somebody through struggles? It's saved their lives, or it's just inspired them to branch out on their own and do something differently?
We've gotten emails of that nature as well, and it's so beautiful, man. When you read these people say things like, we were going through some really hard times and your music was with us the whole way, and it really inspired us. And it's so heartfelt. It's so touching.
Yeah. They're taking your words that you're writing to pen to paper, man, and taking it to heart.
I know. Isn't that intense?
It's insane. But to make an influence on somebody's life is just, I have just nothing but respect for that. Thank you. You can not like a band whatsoever, but if it saves somebody's life, my God, love them for that.
And that's why I call the record Rock and Roll Preaching, because essentially, again, that's what we do. We put the words out there, and it's up for you. Like you said, it's up to interpretation, how you want to take it. If you want to take it to heart, great. Or you just want to, you don't want to listen to the lyrics at all and just dig the music, that's cool too. But, we don't know, and we'll probably never know, who and what we touch with our music. Maybe there's a certain purpose that God really has for us, and maybe we don't even know it yet. That maybe we will change somebody's life somehow, and it's baby steps.
See, I'm in the same boat you are. I say this all the time, and people are probably tired of me saying this, but I will say this to the day that I take my last breath with this show. I do this podcast so that way I can introduce somebody to a band that they gravitate to, and it helps them to save their life like music saved my life. It may not be now. It may be years down the road, but at least I contributed. So,
and thank you so much for doing this. It's amazing. And music is so influential in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
You can think of a song sometimes, or you can hear a song on the radio, and it takes you back to a certain spot or a certain time. It could be happy, could be sad. And that's what music does, So we're so fortunate that we can have that ability to create music.
All right, Steve, my friend, how can folks stay in touch with the Word66? Buy these new singles, EPs, albums, all this when it goes live, when it does go out. How can they do that?
So we're on all the platforms, of course. We're on your Spotify's and your Deezers and your Pandoras and your Amazons and Apple, all that kind of stuff. You can also buy our merch if you're interested. We have a huge selection of merch out there. Whether they be T-shirts or long sleeve shirts or hoodies or tumblers and coffee mugs and tapestries and posters and stickers and badges. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. And of course, it'd be great if you can follow us as well. Of course, we're on your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram as well. And your YouTube. So, please feel free to reach out to us. Comment would be great as well. Say some nice things, hopefully. We don't want any Jesus haters, sending us nasty messages like that other guy that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that'd be great. Just let us know that you're out there and know that you're digging the music or like John said, if you have a story to tell, if maybe, something happened and you just happen to hear our music and it turns your mood around or something. That would be fantastic. We'd love to hear that.
Before I let you go, would you care to do a promo for my show?
Absolutely. Hey, this is Steve from the band The Word66. You're listening to the BODS Mayhem Hour, your best place and your only place for podcasts.
That's right. No one else. There's good ones out there. I'm just saying. All right, everybody, get out and check out the Word66. Please check out these songs that they have out right now. Go to the website, pick up everything that they have as of right now, and I guarantee that you guys will like this band. So give them a fair shot, folks. Please, for me, just give them a fair shot. That's all I ask. Also, please get out and check out our Facebook page. There's our podcast link and our YouTube link. And if you don't mind, please subscribe to my YouTube link. And if you like what I'm doing, I would really appreciate it. And like I said, go out and check out the Word66, buy their singles, everything that's under the sun for this band, and give them a fair shot. Steve, thank you so much for being on the podcast this evening. I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck.
Thank you so much. I had a great time, great interview. It was an absolute pleasure to be chatting with you. And thank you so much for the kind words.
Yeah, thank you, sir. No problem. Glad to have you on here.
Thanks.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.